Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the Apocalypse. We talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC Rich, and I'm joined by my guests, Jessica and Ruth of Five Wits Press. Hey Jessica, hey Ruth, welcome to the show.
Hi. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So I have to lead it off with our standard question. How long have each of you been playing Powered by the Apocalypse games, and what was your gateway?
So in 2013, 2014, a good friend introduced us to Monster Hearts. She said, I found a new game and you need to be playing it. And she was entirely right. I got to play the vampire book. Jessica played the ghoul.
Nice.
And S.A. Hannon, the third name in our credits and our constant roommate, was the mortal. And it was a blast. We fell in love right away.
Yeah, and we've actually played Monster Hearts with that same group several times since then, whenever we can all get together again.
That is fantastic. All right, well, let's jump on over here and read a sitch. In Read a Sitch, we talk with the guests about a specific issue of play or a journal of play or observe things happening in an ongoing Powered by the Apocalypse game. I asked Jessica and Ruth what they'd be interested in talking about, and friends, listeners, I am excited to hear their wisdom because they wanted to talk about the difficulty of keeping things fun and dramatic when the characters succeed. So lead this off. Everybody wants to succeed. Why do we have... What's going on here?
Well, when you think about the consequences that people get when they roll poorly, right? On a 6-, someone fails.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the fun that I've had in PBTA games has involved a lot of failures, right?
True.
People mess up and really exciting stuff goes down. On a 7 to 9, you succeed, but something happens, which is usually really great for the drama. On a 10 plus, it's usually pretty much, you do it. Yay. And honestly, when the players are rolling 10 plus, 10 plus, 10 plus several times in a row, you start to think, well, what now?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the players love it.
Well, do they love it?
Yeah, they might be saying, hey, where's the drama?
Sometimes I've noticed when you look at the write-ups for moves, there's a whole lot more verbiage given to the 7 to 9 than there is in the 10. It's like you do it.
Yeah, and, our game is also the exact same way. It's mostly, you do it. So it's kind of up to whoever's at the table to make it a little more exciting.
What are some ways that you do that?
Well, we've got a few examples from the current game Ruth is running. She's running a Blades in the Dark game, and this has come up in play. So you've got an example there for us?
So I've got a homebrew Blades game going, and we have a leech who can't be stopped. She's been tearing through multiple clocks, like 12-step clocks in a record amount of time using Tinker, and has been shockingly effective with Wreck. Last session, she somehow successfully prowled out of a desperate situation despite not having any ratings in Prowl.
Yeah, she made several rolls where you have to take 2d6 and you take the lower of the two, and she still rolled successfully. So yeah, that's a lot of successful rolls. What did you do, Ruth, to spice it up?
Well, in that particular situation, she was the only one who was not arrested at that particular point in the session. So it became entirely up to her to make the social rolls to reunite the party, which she also had 0 ratings in. So the resulting mixed rolls were hilarious. They're fine. They're fine.
That's one of the tricks that we both use to resolve situations where there's just too much success going on. It's making sure that the characters have to make rolls that are outside their area of expertise. Because you can easily get someone who, say, in Blades, they've got a great skirmish. They're constantly fighting people. They're great. They're rolling really well. But if you specifically target a character with a situation where they are way out of their depth, you end up with them having to roll versus something they're not great at. And it gives them a lot more opportunity for mixed successes and failures. And that can either mean sometimes splitting the party up and making them do some things on their own, so they may not be playing to their strengths as much. Or you can, for example, have like an old enemy shows up and wants to talk with the party. But is not willing to converse with the party socialite. This person really wants to only negotiate with the swordswoman, who is taciturn and does not want to talk. But you know what? She's going to have to talk and make some rules. Or, hey, the socialite gets challenged to a duel and cannot refuse, has to break out that decorative rapier and make some rolls that they are just not going to be good at. That's a nice way to break a streak of fairly boring successes.
I like it.
Another tactic that I like to use is the sort of yes and situation. I like to use yes and both in a role play way and in a hey, what happens next kind of way. So, yes, you succeed. And then something else happens. So you immediately throw something new at them. Their success can even lead them into future challenges. So because you got this success, now this other larger challenge has appeared, which wouldn't have appeared for you unless you were so wildly successful at the first thing. Got an example of that from the Blades game, Ruth?
I do, involving your character. So, while looking for a place to set up a secret lair, Elodie rolled really well to consort with the mysterious patron at the wine shop. This encounter unlocks ahead of schedule entanglements with a much higher tier faction of vampires, as this customer is secretly the Lord of Blood. My party now has a vampire landlord, and I could not be happier.
Yes, in that game, I'm playing the socialite, and she could not find her way around the end of a sword. Another thing you can do is, on a success, and we do this a lot in Super Destiny, on a success, you can have someone describe how awesome it was and let them go into detail on exactly what they did and how it looked and how amazing they were. And that's rewarding and fun. So that adds a little additional element to, here's your success. It's not just you did it, but hey, describe what it looked like as you did it because it was so great.
Another tactic I like, after an amazing success, give your players an option to overextend themselves.
Oh, that's a good one.
Invite your players over a cliff. They easily beat up those monsters, worked out a clever trick to get past the ancient automaton guards. Now look, it seems there's a back way into the big cursed castle. Why not try it? I mean, they're already here, right? They're on a roll. Come on in.
Anyone would try that.
That is great. I definitely enjoyed those notes. One of the other things that I think about with a 10 plus is you've achieved the thing that you wanted, but then after that moment, if anyone looks at you expectantly, almost all PBTA games say that the MC is welcome to make a move, which is really a lot of what you guys are talking about. But,
yeah.
It's easy enough to succeed at a thing without it being boring if you yes and a lot. So I think these are some great suggestions. Well, you mentioned that this is part of some game, some Super Destiny High School Rumble 2 exclamation points. So
the exclamation points are a very important part of the title.
Let's open our brains to this game.
Open your brain.
All right, Super Destiny High School Rumble 2 exclamation points. Game, what's the setting? What's it about?
So this is, as so many really good Powered by the Apocalypse games are, a genre hack. This is a genre hack for any anime with student protagonists. You get to take your favorite things from any anime and have the over-the-top shenanigans the anime is the best at. Escalation, mech fights, magical tears. Giving an impassioned speech in Super Destiny can give you a boost to combat, or asking someone to the dance.
So the setting can be a bit varied. It always will involve a school of some kind. But since this game is a very cooperative game in a lot of ways, the setting is created cooperatively by the group during character creation. So everyone gets to add something to the setting, and everyone sort of has to agree on it before you go forward. A couple examples of settings that we have come up with various groups are school in space at a space colony. We've had a elite private school for wealthy children of the rich and famous. We have had recently merged school districts in the inner city of a cyberpunk dystopia. So each one has had its own sort of flavor, and it can get very wild.
But really, it's all about teamwork and the power of friendship. Do your best! Combate!
Okay, well, what are some of the mechanics in this game that might be different from someone who's just played, say, Apocalypse World?
Well, a lot of the mechanics are very similar. The things that are different, one of the major ones is that you do get 2 playbooks to work with. There are a few other Apocalypse World hacks that involve 2 playbooks, and this is one of them. You have a student playbook and a Destiny playbook, so that you can sort of mix and match and end up with a lot of different kinds of characters. We wanted people to be able to play basically a ripoff of their favorite anime character. And so we had to come up with all the student types that you normally see in animes, and the Destiny playbooks are the supernatural powers. So we, of course, had to have all the classic anime supernatural powers. So the student playbooks include things like the hero and the rival, of course, very classic. The mentor, the transfer student.
The idol.
Oh, yes, the idol. That was a stretch goal one. We have quite a lot of playbooks because we did hit some stretch goals, which were to include more playbooks. So the Destiny playbooks have things like the mech pilot or the transformation warrior, which is both magical girls and Sentai.
As it turns out, Power Rangers and Sailor Moon have basically the same power set.
Yeah, they do a magical thing, turn into something else, and have an outfit. Other Destiny playbooks include Alchemical Witch, Science Experiment. That's a fun one. So yeah, you can mix and match. Another nice thing about being able to mix and match all these playbooks, say you want to do a whole team of magical girls, you can do a bunch of transformation warriors who all have the same Destiny playbook, but they have different student playbooks. You get your stats from your student playbook, and then you get moves from both ones. So you have more mundane moves in your student playbook and your supernatural power moves in your Destiny playbook.
And some of the playbooks come with built-in drawbacks,
Those
my
are
favorite
fun.
thing of all. So, for example, the Science Experiment is always a proprietary resource. Whoever created you in the first place wants you back. You get to name your maker, boss, or handler and describe how you got out of their clutches, and they have 1 bond on you.
So that means I have to talk about bonds. That's another of our mechanics. A lot of PBTA games have some sort of social mechanic.
Strings.
Yeah, strings is an example. We have bonds, which is a social mechanic. You get bonds by making friends with people and having good, trusting interactions with them.
Or intense emotional shared experiences.
Yes, intense emotional shared experiences cause you to deepen your bonds. And they're kind of a currency. You gain them, and as you gain them, you get experience, and then you use them, and they go away in order for you to help out your teammates or to help yourself, giving yourself extra bonuses. You can also use your bonds to activate
Powers combined!
Yes, a big move called Powers Combine, which, it's basically you make Voltron in your own particular way, whatever that Voltron looks like. You can also have bonds with villains. If you get enough bonds with a villain, they can become a Season 1 villain, and you can convert them to your side. Villains can have bonds on you, which lets them mess you up. It's our social dynamic.
Now, is it a on-off, or does it have a numerical value?
It has a numerical. Yeah, it goes from 0 to 3. And once you get to 3, you can't gain any more. You have to start using them.
So there's no hoarding them. You use them, and then you can have another intense emotional experience with a character, mark experience again, and start building back up your bond track.
People hoard them anyway, but they shouldn't.
Another thing unique to the system is limit breaks. When you level, you unlock your limit break, which is an amazing, awesome power having to do with your Destiny playbook that gives you 1 incredible action and then comes with a very serious cooldown.
It's your ultimate move! Yeah, during your cooldown, you can't use most of your abilities.
Each cooldown is unique to the playbook it comes with. So the Night Hunter's cooldown is they are just out of commission. They're in the hospital. They are laid up. They are not going anywhere.
Whereas the Digital Champion's cooldown is they're stuck in the digital world.
They can communicate by text.
That is really cool. I have to know, what is your favorite move and why?
There are 2 of us, and our co-author S.A. Hannon has phoned in from the distance to let us know that her favorite move is Special Eyes, because it's very anime.
Mm-hmm.
But, Ruth, what's your favorite move?
So I picked one from the Mentor, which is called How Dare. When someone has harmed an ally, you do +1 harm to that opponent for the rest of the fight. I like this one because it adds an iconic and badass anime facet to an otherwise very responsible playbook.
We had a lot of fun naming our moves. They have very anime in-joke type names for quite a lot of them. So it's hard for me to pick. I think my favorite is the rival move, the only one allowed to defeat you. In this move, the text reads, you declare one teammate to be your rival. You can use your bonds with this person to give them either +2 or -2 to a roll. In addition, if they are about to take harm, you can choose to take it instead. And the reason I like this move is because while we were creating the rival playbook, we wanted to really let this playbook be the loner character, sort of Blue Oni archetype. The person who stands over in the corner and unhelpfully says, yeah, that person. Because this is a game about teamwork, we didn't want to suggest that the rival would actually turn on the team, right? The rival is part of the team, just a cranky and sometimes unhelpful part of the team. So this move splits the difference. It lets the rival be the only playbook that can use their bonds negatively against a teammate, but they can only do it on one teammate, and they also have the ability to self-sacrificially save that teammate's life. It makes a nice way for this rival not to really be a bad person, just be playing a bad person on TV.
That's really cool. All right. I have to play this now. Please, will you please let us act under fire so I can play a little bit of Super Destiny High School Rumble?
Yeah, let's play it.
It is time to act under fire.
So I'm going to be the principal, and Ruth is also going to be playing a character because it does have to be about teamwork, so we definitely need at least 2 characters here.
The principal is your name for the MC, correct?
Yes, the principal is our name for the MC, and the characters often get called students because they are. They're students.
Also, this let us have a section called the Principal's Principles,
Which was very important to have.
That's pretty great.
You have a character. What playbooks is Plussy going to have?
I think that Plussy will be, after your mention of the secret monster bits, I think that's really fun. So I think I'm going to go with a delinquent secret monster.
S.A. Hannon, off camera, tells me that Tatsu means plus, and Ichiru is often a name for oldest son. So if we want a Japanese name, there is one handy. I'm going to be the friend Apprentice Reaper.
I think I'm going to try to go with like a devil template. So what would you suggest from the moves for someone that is a risen devil that's running?
Unsettling aura. It makes people afraid. That would be good for a devil. Flight is always nice. And then,
Vampiric.
well, yeah. Oh, dark minions, that's a good one. Bless and curse. Good options.
I will take Unsettling Aura, Bless and Curse, and Flight.
Nice. And what will your drawback be?
I would like Human Mask as the drawback. He wears a little amulet that hides his reddish skin and the horns that grow out of his forehead and his wings.
Yeah.
His forked tail.
So you've pretty much made the decisions that you need to make for your character for this quick little game. Ruth, can you introduce Hifumi first here?
All right, Hifumi, her pronouns are she and her. Her birth date's March 8. She likes spicy shrimp, and her look is borrowed clothes and extravagant hair. I'm going to say her hair is extravagant, not because it's any bright color, it's black, it's smooth, but it goes on for an annoying amount of time. She has sort of floor-length hair that doesn't tangle, that only exists with fictional characters.
All right, what's your blood type?
Oh.
Yay, let's meet Tatsu.
Tetsu Ichiro is he, him pronouns. His birth date, he tells people it was February 29th. He was born on a leap year. But in actuality, he's a devil, so he's probably really, really old. Didn't have a calendar at the time. He likes sushi. He likes cold food. Tetsu wears biker boots and dark jeans, and for some reason a striped vest. Yeah, and he has slicked back hair that he pulls back into a ponytail. His blood type is AB.
All right. So we have these 2 characters. We have Cemetery High. the final thing we need to do before we get started playing is each of you needs to pick your beginning bond with the other. So let's say that the numerical amount that's going to go with this bond is going to be 2. So mark that down. And you get to look at the end of your student playbook. There are some options for the bond you want to pick with the other person. This is your starting bond. It shows how you know each other. What happens here is that you suggest it to the other player. If they like it, they say sure. If they don't like it, they say maybe try something else. And then together, one or both of you comes up with a specific detail about this bond. So, Ruth, do you have an idea of a bond you want Hifumi to have with Tatsu Ichiro?
How about this one? You hold a torch for them. Tell them why you decided you should just be friends.
Do you like that one?
Yeah.
So, Ruth, you tell why you should decide to just be friends.
All right. While Hifumi has long had a distant crush, she decided last semester it was never going to work out because that's when she died. I have taken the disadvantage, technically dead. Hifumi is worried that if you found out she died, you might blame yourself, but it really wasn't your fault. There was a lot of collateral that day, and her father had enemies. It wasn't you, but it's just going to be too awkward to explain, and you're alive and she's not.
All right.
Nice.
Okay, what's Tatsu Ichiro's connection going to be to Hifumi?
I think that Hifumi knows that my bad reputation is undeserved. So tell me, Hifumi, what have you seen me do that lets you know that my bad reputation is undeserved?
So are there a number of stray cats that hang out around this necropolis?
Of course.
Do they happen to be attracted to your demonic aura, or just maybe find you extra warm as a heat source and come up to you for pets and you don't kick them out of your way? Because if you're often surrounded by kittens and surreptitiously giving scritches, it's gonna look like you're actually really a nice guy.
Of course, when people are watching, I just walk around them.
Excellent. So, it is now Monday morning near the beginning of the school year, and it's time for class to start. Which of you normally shows up in the classroom early, and which of you is normally late to school?
I'm the delinquent. I can't be early.
All right.
I'm mysteriously just always in my seat before class starts, which is right next to where my good best friend sits. I'm always there first. I always have my books all lined up.
Right, so you're there even before the teacher comes in. Ruth, what's the teacher's name?
Mrs. Maramoto.
Okay, Mrs. Maramoto comes through the door. She's an older, practical lady, and she has all of her books and materials with her. She comes through the door, and she says, "Oh, Hifumi, so nice to see you. You're always so prompt, darling." And she sets her stuff in, and the other students start to file in and take up their seats. They're all pretty, as we established, normal, human-looking people, including you. How and in what manner does Tatsuichiro come on in?
We see Tatsu standing outside in the hallway, watching the clock, waiting for the bell to ring. And then when the bell rings, then he'll turn and step into the class.
All right. Mrs. Maramoto gives you kind of the stank eye. She is used to your ways. You are always just pushing it. But she doesn't say anything to you on this day, and you take your seat. Mrs. Maramoto says, "Class, I'm so happy to tell you today that we have a new transfer student. And I want to introduce you to a very nice young man who I'm sure you will all be very good friends with. This is Moro, and he's new to town." So a young man comes through the door that you just recently came through, Tatsu, and he is extremely clean cut. You all have school uniforms, because of course you do. I assume that Tatsu wears his school uniform somewhat uniquely.
Yeah, I don't tuck in the shirt.
Yeah. This student, Moro, is just, his school uniform has clearly been pressed. And he's got nearly platinum hair that is slicked back a little and then comes down in these beautiful curls. Right? So he's very clearly a person who knows how good he looks. And looks a little snooty, honestly. Tatsu, you immediately recognize that he is an angel.
Of course.
You've never met him before, but yeah, he's got that vibe going off of him. So Moro comes in. Hifumi, you see his almost supernatural beauty, and you also can sense a very pearlescent spiritual aura around him. He comes in, and he looks around, and he introduces himself. I'm Moro. My family just recently relocated to this town. My father's a lawyer.
Of course he is.
A lot of the girls and boys in the class are kind of going, ooh, behind their hands. It's clear that they find him very attractive. There is one seat left. Is it in front of or behind you, Tatsu?
Unfortunately, the only open seat for Moro is directly behind me, which means I can't see at him while he's sitting.
As he starts to head for that seat, Mrs. Maramoto says, now, we need someone to look after our new student and to make him feel welcome as he transitions into our class. Looks around at the whole class. A lot of people seem to be looking like, ooh, pick me, pick me. Mrs. Maramoto calls on Tatsu. Oh, Tatsu Ichiro, I'm sure that since you are so timely in getting to class each day, that you will be an excellent role model for our transfer student. Please show him around and make him feel welcome. What does Tatsu do?
Yeah, I glance over at Hifumi. This is not going to work. Mrs. Maramoto, thank you for the honor, but I really think Hifumi should show him. I only know where the cafeteria is.
Anything I can do to be helpful, I of course will. Hi.
He flashes Hifumi a smile.
I'd like to be convincing.
All right, you are
also
trying to be convincing to Mrs. Maramoto. Go ahead and roll it. You'll add your charm.
My charm is a +1 because I am Tatsuichiro. Oh, read 'em and weep. I just rolled a 9 +1 is a 10.
Ooh,
wow, we get to test your skills because I got the boring option.
The NPC does what you want on a 10+. So, yes, Mrs. Maramoto sort of shakes her head and says, well, I was hoping that maybe both of you could do it. But Hifumi, you are such a dear. Are you sure that you really want to take the time to show this new student around?
It wouldn't be any trouble.
Moro is looking kind of intensely at Tatsu, and he says, regardless, I certainly am going to need to have words with you. And he walks past you and sits in the chair right behind you. And class starts. Rich, what's the first class of the day?
The first class of the day should probably be history. Yeah, maybe we are talking about the Battle of New Orleans, the
All right.
supposed end of a giant war.
Something that helped populate the city beneath us.
Yes.
That's
The many
right.
dead of the necropolis came from this amazing battle. Somehow, Mrs. Maramoto manages to make large battles and dramatic things sound very boring. And she's writing scratch, scratch, scratch with the chalk on the chalkboard. She has her back turned to the class. And as she does that, Moro kind of leans forward and attempts to put his face close to your ear to whisper to you, Tatsu. Do you let him? What do you do?
Yeah, I gotta hear what he has to say, so I'll glance over at Mrs. Maramoto, make sure she's not able to see, and then I'll lean back just a little bit so he can say whatever he thinks is important.
Okay. Hifumi, what do you do as you see the new transfer student Moro, who you're supposed to be helping out and making feel welcome, leaning forward to whisper to Tatsu?
I'm just gonna very casually lean to see if I can overhear.
Are you trying to do this without these two boys noticing what you're doing?
I'm trying to make sure most of the class doesn't notice.
Are you trying to do this in a charming way or in kind of a suave, smooth way?
I'm gonna go with a charming way because my cool is a -1.
All right. Why don't you try to be convincing in your listening in?
That's a 9.
Okay. Moro looks sideways at you and sees you listening in and says, if you hear what I have to say, you're going to be involved in this too. Do you want that?
I'll just shrug and nod.
All right. He says quietly, I know what you are, Devil, but there's something coming that is bigger than either of us. I may need your assistance.
That sounds like a trick. I don't know if I believe you, Angel.
He sort of sighs and says, I know that our kinds have often been on different sides in the great conflicts, but you'll see that I'm right. And he just sort of sits back in his chair and starts to look at his history book. What do the two of you do?
I'll glance over at Hifumi. You have a better sense about things than I do. What do you think?
Well, he definitely has a pearly aura. He's not normal. I don't know if he's right or not.
I guess we just play this out. We can always screw him over later.
At that moment, something slams into the window. Which of you, Tatsu or Hifumi, is sitting nearer to the window?
It's the better seat.
Obviously,
I know that
the
Hifumi
delinquent
would
always
give me
has
the
to sit
better
by the
seat.
window to stare out it. It's
Totally.
the law.
It is. It's
All
classic.
right. So something smacks into the window. Actually, it's the window right behind you, the one that is closer to Moro, and it is a large purple tentacle of some kind that has smacked into the window. It looks like it's reached down from above somewhere and has smacked. The glass is starting to crack and shatter. The students all turn and look at this purple tentacle, and people start to shriek and run around, and Mrs. Maramoto faints. What are you going to do?
I look at Moro and say, oh, I see. This is the trouble you brought to us.
I didn't bring it, he says, and stands up and manifests a glowing sword in his hand.
I think it's time for me to get ready to fight a giant tentacle monster too.
All right. What does it look like as you get ready to fight? Do you have weapons or do you use claws?
He will summon some fire because he's a devil. So
Yeah.
there you go. It just has this ball of fire that appears in his left hand.
All right. So we've got one guy here glowing and having a glowing sword, and we've got Tatsu with fire in his hand. Hifumi, what do you do?
This is gonna totally blow my cover. So I'm gonna first take an action to try to make sure the room is clear of civilians because, well, evidently these guys have no problem with being themselves. I'm still working on it. This is very new. So my first thing is going to be try to get everybody out the door.
All right. You are going to be trying to shove everybody out of the door. As you're doing this, the tentacle breaks through into the room. So I'm going to ask you to try to come to people's rescue to get them out of the door.
All right. Again, with the -1 to cool, which is what comes to the rescues often.
Ooh,
So
can I
yeah.
help?
Yeah. Do you want to also be protecting people, or do you want to just punch this tentacle as it bursts through the window?
Well, I rolled an 8, so I have a 7. So it is a mixed success,
That's
which could be sufficient to do some good.
It can be. Yeah, you could help Hifumi with a bond by using one of your bonds with her. But you would raise her roll by 2, which would still be a 9. So it wouldn't really
Gotcha.
alter the effect. So.
So best to save it for a more opportune moment. I will take the mixed success. It is, after all, one of the more exciting results.
Okay, so that means that you are going to successfully usher everybody out of the room. It's kind of tricky because a few of them are still kind of oohing and eyeing over Morrow and how great he looks now that he has a glowing sword. But you get them out of the room, but you are going to get swatted by this tentacle as it comes in. And you're going to mark 1 harm in your heart boxes. So go ahead and do that and tell us what it looks like as you usher everybody out of the room.
So I'm ushering people out and getting them to the door and insisting that everyone walk in an orderly fashion. But when I get hit from behind, taking scuffed, I think what it does is triggers my Reaper form, which is the only form I actually have.
So what's that look like?
So in Reaper form, Hifumi's extravagant hair billows freely as a giant cloud of black smoke, and all the color drains from her skin and clothing until it's all chalky ash surrounding jet black eyes and a black void of mouth. She floats just a little off the ground. It's not like flying, just like admitting that gravity doesn't really matter anymore.
All right,
She
so
looks definitely deeply creepy and not at all alive.
that assists in getting people out of the room.
Oh, not how I
Yeah.
imagined her.
Okay, so as this tentacle is breaking in through the glass, what's Tetsu doing?
Tetsu's going to burn the thing to ash.
All right.
Although there are a couple glances over at his friend Fumi. That's unexpected.
All right. Yeah, so it sounds like you are going to go all out, which is based off of your hot stat. So go ahead and roll it.
Wow, I'm sorry these dice are so hot. I think you cursed me. I rolled an 11 plus 1 is a 12.
Amazing. So you get to pick 2 of the following. You harm it, it doesn't harm you, or you help a friend pass +1 forward to a teammate of your choice. Which 2 do you want?
I want to harm them and they don't harm you. I would help my friend, but she's doing such a great job of terrifying everyone to leave.
Okay. I think what happens here is that you and Morrow go to attack it at the same time, right? And as he swings for it with his sword, he shouts, "For the hosts of heaven!" And he cuts at it. But with a roll like you just made, you kind of show him up. He strikes it, but not a whole lot happens, whereas you, with your fire, are going to do some significant damage to it. So describe for us how this looks as you do a better job than your angel pal here.
So we're in a classroom, of course. I think what we see is Morrow flies up with his beautiful feathered wings and slices at one of the suckers on the giant tentacle. And then casually, our delinquent devil, Tatsu Ichiro, stretches out both of his hands, palms towards it, and unleashes this hellfire on the thing. And then it's like cooking, and it kind of smells good because squid and...
Amazing. Does this hellfire burn anything in the classroom?
Of course, it burns the windows. It's not good.
Yeah, okay. So things are kind of on fire here in the classroom. And you hear a sound from above as if there's something sitting on the roof, screams out in pain, and it calls, "This isn't over!" And it swoops another tentacle in through the window. It smacks Morrow's sword out of his hand, which flies off into the distance. And it also smacks away, as it does so, your amulet. You suddenly are revealed in your devil form with your red scales and your pointy tail. And at that moment, Mrs. Maramoto, being somehow awakened from her stupor by the rising flames and the scent of smoke, sits up at her desk and says, "Oh heavens, what's all this?"
That was pretty mega. That very anime. That was great. If people are interested in learning more about things that you two are developing or Five Wits Press, what's the best way to follow you all on social media, anything like that?
We have a website, thefivewitspress.com, which talks about the various projects we're working on, mostly Super Destiny High School Rumble. We also, the Five Wits Press is on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find Super Destiny High School Rumble, if you want to get hold of it, on DriveThruRPG, where it's available both in print and PDF versions, as well as one of the backer-created playbooks from one of our Kickstarter backers.
Thank you both so much for coming on to talk to us about Super Destiny High School Rumble.
Thank you.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at @+1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com.
Hi listeners, Jason from Gauntlet Publishing here. I want to tell you about a couple of new things we have for you this month. The first is Nephews in Peril, a major expansion for Brindlewood Bay, the game of cozy murder mysteries and supernatural horror. Nephews in Peril is a collection of 6 new mysteries for the game, each by a different fabulous author, and some revised rules and gameplay advice. It can be found in the $6 plus Gauntlet Patreon feed until October 15th, and then DriveThruRPG after that. The next thing I want to tell you about is Codex Home, the first issue in Volume 5 of the magazine. Codex Home features new material for Trophy Gold and Brindlewood Bay, plus the all-new game Back Again from the Broken Land, which is about fantasy heroes recounting stories as they return home from a calamitous war against a Dark Lord, all while evading the remnants of that Dark Lord's army. It's a fantastic Powered by the Apocalypse game, and we're delighted to share it with you later in October. Remember, your contributions to the Gauntlet Patreon help support everything we do in the community, including this very podcast. As always, thanks so much for your support.